Hey you, yes, you lying there in the dark. Have you ever wondered what really happens in the split second when the heart stops? Over 800 scientific studies, thousands of people from every country, every religion, even atheists, all quietly whisper the exact same impossible details when they come back. Tonight, we're not here to scare you. We're here to wrap you in the softest, warmest proof that the moment you think everything ends, something gentler than your favorite blanket begins. So take one slow breath with me, let your shoulders melt into the bed, and let's float together into the most relaxing near-death secrets ever told. If you love this kind of peace, gently tap subscribe so YouTube knows to bring you more. Ready? Here we go. Close your eyes with me for a second. Feel that tiny space between your last breath out and the next one in. That's where we're going tonight. Imagine this. A paramedic in Texas is pounding on a man's chest, shouting, "Come on, stay with me." But the man, he's already somewhere else. He told me later, voice soft, like he was still half dreaming. I just left. No jerk, no tunnel spin, nothing scary. It was like the world exhaled and I went with it. The noise of the ambulance faded like someone turned the volume knob all the way down. My body got heavy on that stretcher. But me? I felt myself lift, slow and easy, the way you float up from deep water when you finally stop fighting. I wasn't scared. I remember thinking, oh, this is what relaxing really feels like. He laughed when he said it, because all his life he'd paid for massages, meditation apps, white noise machines, trying to feel this calm, and it was waiting the whole time on the other side of one missed heartbeat. So right now, wherever you are, let your next breath out be a little longer. Good. That tiny letting go you just did, that's the front door. Tonight we're only visiting, peeking through that door together, wrapped in the softest facts science can't explain yet. You don't have to believe anything. Just breathe and float with me. Because every single person who took this little trip says the same first words when they wake up. I've never felt so peaceful in my whole life. Picture a little girl in Thailand, a truck driver in Iceland, a grandmother in Brazil, all flatlined miles apart, different languages, different gods. Yet when they open their eyes again, they all cry the same sentence. Word for word, tone for tone. It was so beautiful. Why did you bring me back? I talked to a nurse in Chicago who's heard it over 50 times. She told me, voice dropping to a whisper so the other staff wouldn't hear, I used to be terrified of dying. Then I kept watching patients wake up smiling, eyes shining like they'd just come from the best vacation of their lives. One guy, big tough biker, tattoos everywhere, grabbed my hand and said, "Sister, whatever you believe, drop it. It's better. It's love, pure love, no judgment." He died of cancer 2 weeks later, but do you know what? He spent those 2 weeks comforting everyone else. Thousands of cases, same story. A heart surgeon in Belgium keeps a private notebook. Over 20 years he wrote down the first words of every patient who coded and returned. The list reads like poetry. Beautiful, home, love, don't be afraid. I saw my mom. It's okay, more real than here. Even the scientists studying this at the University of Virginia admit they get goosebumps every single time. One researcher told me, we expected chaos, darkness, hallucinations from a dying brain. Instead, we keep getting the same calm message from kindergarten kids and 90-year-old atheists. Everything is going to be all right. So tonight, whatever kind of day you had, whatever worries are still circling, borrow their words. Thousands have checked and come back smiling. They all say the same gentle thing, you're safe, you're loved, and the best part hasn't even started yet. Listen. The second the monitor flatlines, something strange happens. People don't panic. They sigh. A firefighter from Australia told me, "Mate, I got crushed under a collapsed wall. Should have been screaming in pain, right? Instead, the pain just clicked off. like someone found the switch and turned it to 0. Then this warmth rolled over me, starting at my toes, moving up slow, like sinking into a hot bath after the worst day ever. I remember thinking, oh yeah, I know this place. Not with my brain, with my whole self. Like I'd been homesick my entire life and finally walked through my own front door. He wasn't religious, didn't believe in anything really, but he cried telling me it was home, not a house I lived in, not heaven with clouds, just home. The feeling you get when your mom hugged you as a kid and the whole world went quiet. Except bigger, safer, older. A little boy in India drowned in a village pond. Doctors worked on him for almost an hour. When he sat up, he said in his language, I went back to the real house. This one is just the guest house. His mum still repeats it when she tucks his little brother in at night. That's the weird part. No matter where you grew up, what language you speak, the second everything stops, your soul recognizes the address. The fighting stops. The bills, the arguments, the aching back, gone. Just the deepest exhale you've ever known and a soft voice inside saying, welcome back, sweetheart. You're finally home. So tonight, let your body get heavy. Let the day fall away. Because even science now admits, the moment everything stops is the moment you remember where you really belong. Ever notice how dreams mess with time? 5 minutes feels like a whole day. Now imagine that, but clearer, kinder. A pilot whose plane went down in the Pacific was legally dead for 12 minutes. When he woke up, he was angry. You stole 3 years of my life, he told the doctors. They thought he was confused. He wasn't. He said, I lived whole lifetimes over there. I watched my daughter grow up, get married, have kids. I sat on a porch with my wife when we were old and grey. It felt like decades. Then I heard someone say, it's not time. And bam, I'm back in this cold body with tubes everywhere. He's not alone. Person after person says the same. Time over there is like warm honey, slow when you want to linger, fast when you need to move. A woman in Canada left her body during surgery and spent what felt like weeks walking through fields with her childhood dog. She came back and only 6 minutes had passed on the clock. A scientist explained it like this. Here, we're stuck in a straight line, tick-tock, aging, deadlines. There, everything is now. Past, present, future, all folded together like a blanket you're wrapped in. You can touch any moment you want. That's why people return and say, I understood everything. Because for a little while they stepped outside the clock into one eternal, soft moment where nothing is late, nothing is rushed, and every second of love you ever gave or received is still happening right now. So tonight, let the minutes stretch. Let the clock slow down. Borrow their secret. Time is only tight here. Where you're headed in your dreams tonight, there's all the time in the world, and it feels like gentle forever. Imagine opening your eyes and there's your grandpa, exactly as he was the summer you were 7, before the sickness, before the grey hair, standing there grinning with that same gap-toothed smile. A soldier in Afghanistan took a bullet, heart stopped for 9 minutes. He told his wife later, voice cracking, Babe, I saw my brother, the one who died when we were kids. He was 10 years old again, barefoot, holding that stupid baseball we lost in the river. He said, Tell Mom I'm okay, and I still catch fireflies. I haven't thought about fireflies in 30 years. Thousands say it. Grandma's baking cookies at the age they were happiest. Dad's strong again, tossing you in the air like when you were little. Even pets, tails wagging, looking like the day you brought them home. They don't speak with words sometimes, just feelings straight to your heart. We never left. We've been waiting. Look how young we are. No more pain. A little girl in Japan lost her daddy when she was 3. Years later, she coded on the operating table. When she woke up, she told her mum, Daddy's hair is black again, and he's tall like a tree. He picked me up and spun me and said he watches me brush my teeth every morning. Her mum still cries because the girl never knew her dad before cancer took his hair. They always look like love remembers them, at their very best, glowing with health. And the hug. People say the hug feels like every missing birthday and Christmas rolled into one warm squeeze. So tonight, if someone you love is on the other side, know they're not old or sick anymore. They're young, they're whole, and they're saving the best version of themselves just for the day you walk through that door. Until then, they're closer than you think. Probably smiling right now. Close your eyes and feel the sheets cool against your skin. We're drifting deeper now, deeper than any meditation app has ever taken you. You're safe, you're held, and the next thing you're about to hear actually happened to a tired mum of 3 in Manchester during a routine operation that went wrong. She was only gone 4 minutes, but when she woke up, she grabbed the nurse's sleeve and whispered, "The light. It's not like sunlight. It's alive." She said it wrapped around her the way her babies used to wrap their tiny arms around her neck when they were brand new. Warm, golden, but with a softness that made her feel like she was the baby this time. No glare, no squinting, just pure welcome. "I've spent 42 years chasing happy," she told her husband later, tears sliding sideways into her hair, "and it was waiting for me the whole time. One heartbeat away." She laughed through the tears because the light knew her. Not her name, not her job, not her mistakes. It knew the exact shade of tired she carried behind her eyes every single morning, and instead of judging, it poured straight into those tired places like warm honey into cracks. People keep using the same words: kinder than sunrise on snow, gentler than the first sip of tea when you're frozen, brighter than anything but never harsh. A heart surgeon in New York said he's watched hardened criminals wake up from cardiac arrest softer than kittens because that light looked at them and only saw the child they once were. Even little kids who've never seen a sunrise describe it the same. A 5-year-old in the Philippines flatlined during a fever. When he opened his eyes, he told his mama, "The light hugged me better than you do." Then he fell asleep, smiling. His mum still repeats it when she needs reminding that love doesn't need arms to hold you tight. Tonight, let that same light find the corners of you that feel cold. Imagine it sliding in through the top of your head, slow and easy, filling every place the day scraped raw. You don't have to do anything. Just let it love you the way it loves every single person who accidentally stepped through the curtain for a moment. You're allowed. You're wanted, you're already known. Now sink a little heavier into the mattress, because we're going higher. A man in Dublin was hit by a bus, broke nearly every bone. While the paramedics shocked his heart back into rhythm, he rose straight up through the roof of the ambulance like smoke through a chimney. He told me, voice still full of wonder years later, "I wasn't a body anymore. I was air that could think, lighter than the duvet you're under right now. No weight. No ache in my knees, no tight chest from 30 years of smoking, just free." He floated above the crash scene and watched the chaos like it was a silent film. People screaming, lights flashing, someone's coffee spilling in slow motion across the pavement. But none of it touched him. He felt what birds must feel, curious, calm, a little amused. He could see the gold thread of motorway lights stretching all the way to the sea. He could feel the cold Atlantic breeze and it didn't bother him at all. A little girl in hospital in Cape Town left her cancer-ridden body the same way. She said, "I flew out the window and my nightie didn't even flap because I didn't need it anymore." She visited her school playground while her classmates were having break, waved at them even though they couldn't see her, then zoomed up so high the whole city looked like glittering toys. When the doctors got her heart going again, she was furious. "I was flying. Why did you pull me down?" That weightlessness stays with them. Grown men who used to groan getting out of bed suddenly move like they're 20 again. They say the memory of being pure lightness leaks into their muscles here. Tonight, feel your own body getting lighter with every breath out. Let your heels sink, then your hips, then your shoulders. Imagine the bed is only holding you out of politeness now. You could float if you wanted. You're that close. Let's stay up here a little longer. Imagine you're hovering above the hospital bed, looking down at yourself. The doctors are sweaty, shouting, "Clear." The heart monitor is screaming one long beep. But you're perfectly peaceful, watching like it's someone else's birthday party. A paramedic in Los Angeles told me about a teenager who crashed his motorbike, dead on scene for 8 minutes. When they finally got a pulse, he opened his eyes and started laughing. "Dude, you should have seen your faces from up there. You were all red and panicking, and I just wanted to tell you to chill. I'm fine." He could see the tiny hole in the paramedic's glove, the coffee stain on the doctor's shoe, the exact time on the wall clock behind someone's head. Details impossible from the bed. A woman in Sweden watched her own cesarean section from the ceiling lights. She saw the surgeon drop a clamp and swear under his breath, saw her husband faint and hit his head on a trolley. Later, she repeated the swear word exactly. The surgeon went white. "I was standing right in front of you the whole time," he said. She smiled and answered, "No, love, you were below me." They all say the same. The room looks softer from up there, colors warmer, like someone turned the saturation up on real life. And there's no fear, only a gentle curiosity, like watching fish in an aquarium. Some wave at their own body the way you'd wave at a friend you'll see again tomorrow. So right now, imagine yourself rising just a few inches above the duvet. Look down at the shape of you, chest moving slow, face finally slack and peaceful. Say hello to that body like it's a good old friend you're borrowing for a while. Tell it you'll be right back, because you always come back. Carrying a little bit of that ceiling view calm with you. We're going deeper now, deeper than bones and breath. A soldier in Iraq took shrapnel to the chest. While the medics fought to keep him here, every moment of his 34 years opened up around him like soft petals. Not fast, not scary, gentle, like someone turning the pages of your favorite picture book under a warm lamp. He saw the time he stole sweets, age 6, and felt his mum's quiet disappointment, but wrapped in understanding now, not shame. He saw every girl he ever hurt and felt their hearts ache with his own, then felt forgiveness pour in like cool water. He saw the stray dog he fed once in Kabul and felt the dog's simple joy again, tail thumping. Every kindness glowed gold, every cruelty dimmed to grey, but even the grey parts were held gently, like bruised fruit that still has sweetness inside. A woman in Paris who overdosed saw her whole life in one breath. She told the psychiatrist, "It wasn't Judgment Day, it was Understanding Day." I felt how every choice rippled, but the ripples were held in love, not punishment. She's been clean 12 years now because she finally understood she was worth saving. Children see it too. A little boy in Texas drowned in the family pool. Came back saying, "I watched all my happy and all my sad-like movies on a big soft screen, and a nice man sitting next to me kept handing me tissues made of clouds." His parents still don't know where he learned the word tissues at age 4. It's never about guilt. It's about feeling the weight of your own heart, every gram of love you gave away, every gram you hoarded, and the love always weighs more. Always. Tonight, let your own life review begin softly. Feel the warmth of every time you made someone laugh, every quiet cup of tea you brought a friend, every time you chose kind, even when you were hurting. Let those moments glow around you now, close and comforting, like fireflies in a jar you can keep forever. Last stop before we drift even further. Imagine the second you leave the body, love hits you so hard you almost laugh out loud. Not the small, careful love we ration here. Huge, ridiculous, knock you off your feet love. A truck driver in Nebraska coded on the operating table. When he came back, he told his wife, "Baby, I felt you loving me right then, from the waiting room. I felt our kids loving me from school. I felt my dad, who died in '98, loving me harder than he ever managed when he was alive. It was like being dunked in the best hot tub of love you can imagine, times a million." People say it's physical. Chests expand like hearts suddenly have all the room in the universe. One man said, I understood why we cry at weddings and babies and songs. We're remembering every tear here is homesickness for there. Even atheists come back wrecked by it. A physicist from London flatlined during a heart attack. He woke up sobbing, "There's no word big enough. It's not emotion. It's the stuff everything is made of. I spent my life measuring particles and I just swam in the thing the particles are swimming in." A little girl in Kenya met her stillborn sister and said the love felt like 1,000 mamas hugging you all at once but inside your skin. She's 8 now and still draws hearts bigger than her whole body. Tonight, let that love start seeping in early. Feel it in your fingertips first, warm and tingling, then rolling up your arms, across your chest, down through your tired legs. Let it pool behind your eyes until they have to close. This love isn't waiting for some far-off day. It's already looking for the cracks in your armor, slipping in while you're soft and half-dreaming, reminding you who you really are before the world taught you to forget. You are loved, ridiculously, impossibly. Right now, they come back struggling for words, the ones who have slipped far enough to taste it. Not purple, not blue, not any violet the human retina was built to hold. It is a color that feels like forgiveness, arriving after 1,000 years of being unforgiven. It moves the way mercy would move if mercy had a body. Slow, deliberate, luminous from within. Some say it pulses like a heart that has never known betrayal. Others say it sings in a register just beneath sound. One man, revived after 23 minutes without a pulse, kept repeating, "It was the color of my mother's voice when she thought I was asleep." He cried for days because language had no bucket large enough to carry it home. The glow is not harsh. It does not demand attention the way neon or sunlight does. It invites. It waits. It knows you are tired of every shade you have worn like clothing on this planet. The red of anger, the grey of grief, the bruised yellow of fear. This new color washes them off without judgment, the way warm water washes salt from skin. People who have seen it often stop caring about sunsets. They sit in dim rooms and close their eyes, chasing the afterimage, because even the memory of that hue feels like resting inside the moment just before a kiss. Painters give up their brushes. Photographers delete entire hard drives. Nothing made by hands can compete with a color that seems to have been waiting, patient and ancient, for the exact shape of your absence. When they return, their eyes look different, as if the pupils have been rinsed. Doctors note it in charts. Mydriasis unresolved by light stimulus. But it isn't pharmacological. It's the residue of having looked into a spectrum that predates stars. Children who come back from clinical death sometimes draw it in crayon, looping scribbles that refuse to stay inside the lines. The paper glows faintly for hours afterward, though no one can explain why. Adults try to name it: ultraviolet, infrared, divine, but every label falls off like wet paper. The color simply is, gentle and glowing, the first and final hue of a place that has no need for darkness, because darkness there would feel like an unnecessary cruelty. In the end, the ones who have seen it don't argue about its existence. They become quiet. They touch ordinary things: tree bark, supermarket apples, the cheeks of sleeping babies, with a tenderness that wasn't there before. They know those objects are secretly related to the color they can't describe. Everything here is a dim echo, a bruised translation, and sometimes, late at night, they wake smiling at nothing because the color has come back to visit, sliding under the bedroom door like a friendly cat made of light, curling around their hearts until morning. There is a moment, most say it arrives after the tunnel, after the light, after the impossible color, when struggle simply stops. Not the absence of pain. Pain is already gone by then. This is the absence of wanting pain to be gone. It is peace so complete that the concept of disturbance becomes childish, like worrying about monsters under a bed that no longer exists. People who reach it report the same impossible sensation. I did not want to return, and that absence of wanting was the sweetest thing I have ever felt. One woman, drowned in a frozen lake and revived after 41 minutes, said it felt like sinking into a warm bath after carrying stones in her chest for 43 years. She didn't know she had been carrying stones until they dissolved. Another man, heart attack on an operating table, laughed through his oxygen mask when he woke. "I was home," he gasped, "and home didn't need me to become anything better than I already was." The longing to stay was not emotional. It was gravitational. Bodies here pull downward with hunger, debt, story. There, the pull is toward rest without ending, toward a stillness that keeps expanding yet never feels empty. Many speak of a silence that is not silent. It hums at a frequency that erases the difference between self and everything else. Thought stops because there is nothing left to solve. Regret, ambition, the low-grade terror of being alive, all of it becomes as irrelevant as a child's fear of the dark once the sun is fully up. Some cry when they realize they are being sent back, but the tears are not sad. They are the overflow of a container that has discovered it was never small. The body on the table twitches, the heart stutters into rhythm again, and the peace begins to recede like a tide that promises, without words, it will still be there when the time is right. Those who return often frighten their families at first. They move slowly, speak softly, touch faces as if memorizing them for a journey they now know is temporary. They no longer rush. Deadlines feel obscene. They sit for hours watching rain or birds or nothing at all, wearing the faint smile of someone listening to music no one else can hear. Doctors call it post-resuscitation euphoria. The ones who have been there know it is simply homesickness in reverse, the ache of being back inside a smaller love when you have tasted the boundless kind. Without warning, without instruments, the music begins. It is not heard with ears. It arrives inside the chest like blood returning to a limb that has been asleep. Some say it sounds like every lullaby their mother ever forgot she sang. Others hear the combined voices of everyone they have ever loved, braided into a single chord that keeps resolving into deeper and deeper consolation. There are no melodies in the human sense, no beginning, no end, no verses. It is more like standing inside a bell made of light while it decides never to stop ringing. A boy pulled from a swimming pool after 12 minutes underwater woke up humming a tune his parents had never heard. He hummed it for days until it faded like a dream. A surgeon who flatlined during his own bypass operation said the music felt like being forgiven by mathematics. Every sorrow he had ever caused or suffered was gathered up, measured perfectly, and returned as harmony. There was rhythm but no beat, melody but no separation between notes. It was the sound of distance disappearing. Many report that the music knows them. It modulates the instant they think of a specific grief, folding the memory into major when minor would have hurt. One woman heard her stillborn daughter laughing inside the chords. An old man heard the dog he lost at age 9, barking joyfully somewhere inside the overtones. The music does not distract from pain, it translates it. Every wound becomes an instrument, and the orchestra lacks nothing. When the body calls them back, defibrillator, adrenaline, sheer stubborn physiology, the music does not stop all at once. It retreats slowly, like a tide that leaves gifts on the shore. People wake with fragments stuck behind their eyes. Some become composers and spend the rest of their lives trying to notate what cannot be notated. Others never listen to recorded music again. It feels like eavesdropping on a private conversation. They walk through grocery stores, sit in traffic, attend funerals, carrying the silence where that impossible orchestra still plays, softer than breath, louder than anything else in the world. It happens in an instant and lasts an eternity. Suddenly, every library, every hard drive, every scrap of knowledge ever written or thought or whispered across all of time opens at once. You do not read it, you become it. The sensation is less like knowing and more like remembering something you already were. Past, present, future collapse into a single spacious now. You understand quantum mechanics the way you understand your own name. You see why Rome fell and why the child in front of you in the grocery line will cry tonight. You know the exact weight of every kindness you have ever offered and every cruelty. There is no judgment, only perfect context. A teenage girl revived after a car accident said it was like swallowing the internet, but warm and laughing. She knew the names of everyone who would ever love her, and the precise moment her grandmother in 1893 decided not to leave her grandfather after all. She saw the birth of stars and the death of ants with equal clarity and equal tenderness. The knowledge did not feel heavy. It felt like wings. Then, gently, it begins to fold itself away. Not because you are unworthy, but because the body cannot carry that magnitude and still walk. You forget the way you forget dreams, quickly, mercilessly, yet something remains. People return speaking fluent languages they never studied. Some solve mathematical proofs in their heads that stump experts. Others simply know, without arrogance, that everything is going to be okay, even when it manifestly isn't. The forgetting is part of the mercy. To remember it all would incinerate the small container of a human life. Years later, in quiet moments, fragments return, a sudden understanding of why a friend's unspoken grief, the answer to a question asked decades ago. The ones who have tasted total knowledge are never again impressed by trivia or credentials. They become quiet listeners, gentle with other people's ignorance because they remember in their bones how partial seeing always is. And sometimes, just before sleep, they feel the vast library brush against them again, like a cat asking to be let in, patient, knowing the door will open when the time is finally right. They have never seen light, not really. Congenital blindness means the visual cortex has never learned its trade, yet when these travelers leave their bodies, something shifts. One woman, blind from birth, died briefly on an operating table and returned sobbing. "I saw," she said, "I saw perfect light. Not white, not gold, something that made every description she had ever been given by sighted people feel like a child's crayon drawing of the ocean. It had depth, texture, movement, emotion. It loved her." A man blind since infancy flatlined during a heart attack. When he came back, he asked for paper. With clumsy fingers that had never learned to write, he drew overlapping circles of light that made nurses weep without knowing why. He said the light knew he had never seen nothing his whole life, and so it introduced itself slowly, the way you approach a frightened deer. First a warmth on the face that had no face, then a brightness that felt like being smiled at. Finally, a radiance so complete he understood for the first time why sighted people cry at sunsets. These accounts share a strange detail. The newly sighted do not describe shapes or objects at first, only relationship. The light holds them. The light knows their name in a language older than names. Some report seeing the faces of loved ones inside the light, but not with eyes, more like recognizing a voice in a crowded room. When they are sent back, the vision fades, but the memory of being seen remains. Many lose their fear of the dark entirely. They say darkness here is just the light being polite, giving the eyes a rest before the next unveiling. Blind children who return from clinical death often refuse to open their eyes for days, not from trauma, but from loyalty. They have seen perfect light and do not want to betray it with the dim substitute of hospital fluorescence. Parents panic until the children explain in calm, ancient voices, "It's still there, I just keep them closed so I can watch better." And sometimes, years later, these children will suddenly laugh in their sleep, as if someone on the other side has just told the funniest, kindest joke in the universe. They are still small enough to be carried. Yet when the monitors beep back to life, the child on the gurney is suddenly older than the hospital itself. A 7-year-old boy revived after drowning in a neighbor's pool opened his eyes and looked at his frantic paramedics as though they were the ones who had almost been lost. "It's all right. he said in a voice that belonged to no child anyone had ever met. "You're doing better than you think." Then he asked for his mother and fell asleep with the serene exhaustion of a very old man who has just finished a long journey home. Parents speak of it in whispers afterward, afraid the gift will be frightened away. The toddler who stops mid-tantrum places both hands on his mother's cheeks and says, "You were my mother in Egypt once, and I left too soon. I came back to finish loving you." The 5-year-old who sits beside a grieving grandfather and explains, without drama, that grandma is laughing now because the cancer can't find her anymore. They use words like soul and eternity, the way other children use dinosaur and ice cream, casually, correctly, as if the concepts fit comfortably in small mouths. Some return with memories that reach back through centuries. A girl in Seattle, dead for 9 minutes, woke speaking fluent Aramaic phrases that made the hospital's Assyrian chaplain drop to his knees. She described a desert battlefield, the smell of frankincense, the exact details of a siege in 1169 that historians later confirmed from newly translated scrolls. Within a month, the language was gone, replaced by kindergarten songs, but she still bows her head slightly before eating, a habit no one taught her. The wisdom never stays long. It ebbs like a tide that has somewhere else to be. The child forgets the siege, the Aramaic, the exact weight of galaxies, and goes back to fearing the dark and begging for one more story. What lingers is subtler, an absence of cruelty, a tendency to touch hurting things gently, an odd calm during thunderstorms. Grown-ups who were once those children sometimes dream, all their lives, of a voice that sounds like their own childhood but infinitely patient, saying, "You already know how this ends, and it's beautiful. Keep going." They run to you without hesitation, as if the years of separation were only a long blink. The beagle you buried when you were 15 barrels into your legs, solid and warm, tail creating its own weather system of joy. The tabby cat who vanished 20 years ago leaps into your arms, purring at a volume that vibrates in your ribs like a second heart. They look exactly as they did on their best day. No grey muzzles, no clouded eyes, only the prime ridiculous happiness of the animal who always knew you were the center of the universe. There is no language barrier. You understand their thoughts the way you once understood them when they pressed a cold nose into your hand at 3 a.m. The old dog says, clear as any human voice, "I waited. I knew you'd come." The hamster you accidentally starved in 4th grade wheels, in ecstatic circles, and forgives you before you can even form the apology. They are not memories made solid. They are more real than the body you left cooling on the table. Their fur smells like every good day you ever spent together, distilled. Many stay only long enough to walk you partway back. The collie who died saving you from the car when you were 6 sits, places a paw on your chest, and you feel the exact moment your heart learns how to beat again. Then, gently, they step aside. Some people sob when they tell of it later, not from grief, but from the unbearable sweetness of being loved, that completely by something that never learned the concept of abandonment. Years afterward, in dreams, you sometimes feel a cold nose nudge your hand under the covers, or hear nails clicking across a floor that isn't there, and you wake smiling before you are fully awake. It is thinner than spider silk, stronger than any chain. Most do not see it until they are already far from the body. Then it appears, a shimmering cord of liquid starlight extending from somewhere behind the navel, back toward the small abandoned shape on the table, or the mangled car or the hospital bed. It does not tug or hurt. It simply reminds. You are tethered by love, not punishment. You may travel, but you may not yet cut the thread. Some describe it as warm, pulsing softly in rhythm with the heart that has stopped. Others say it sings, a single silver note that keeps perfect pitch across any distance. A firefighter pulled back after 11 minutes said the cord felt like his wife's hand holding his the day they married, steady, unquestioning, impossible to doubt. When the time comes to return, the cord does not drag, it invites. One gentle contraction, and you are sliding home, wrapped in the knowledge that the connection can never actually break, only stretch. Those who have seen it never again fear being lost in death. They know the cord is always there, invisible in ordinary light, glowing when needed. Suicide attempts drop to zero among experiencers. The memory of that loving tether is stronger than any despair. In quiet moments, they sometimes place a hand on their stomach and smile, feeling the place where eternity is still knotted to time. You hear it the way you hear your own name called across a crowded station when you thought you were alone. A voice without gender, without age, yet more familiar than your mother's. It says only 2 words, soft as breath on a mirror. Not yet. And with those words comes a love so complete that refusal feels impossible and unnecessary. There is no anger, no judgment of the broken body or the unfinished life, only tenderness, the way you would speak to a sleepy child who has wandered too far from the campsite. Come back, love. It isn't time. Some recognize the voice as a deceased relative, others as something far larger, wearing a familiar face for comfort. A soldier in Afghanistan, clinically dead for 6 minutes from an IED, heard his childhood dog say, "Not yet," in the voice of his drill sergeant, "Whatever shape will reach you fastest." The message is always the same. You are still needed. There is more laughter to give, more tears to hold. One particular sunrise someone else will miss if you don't return to tell them about it. People sent back often weep for days, not from sorrow, but from the sheer gentleness of the refusal. They wake with the echo of those words printed inside their ribs. Not yet becomes their quiet mantra in traffic jams, cancer wards, funeral homes. They live differently afterward, as if every ordinary day has been stamped with a loving postscript. This one still counts. They do not arrive as letters or words. They arrive as knowing, the way you know you are loved in the second before a hug reaches you. A cascade of certainty. You are held. You were always held. Every wound you carry was seen and cherished anyway. The messages pour through the heart rather than the ears, vast yet intimate, ancient yet spoken only to you. One man, revived after a massive stroke, said it felt like every person he had ever smiled at sent that smile back, multiplied by infinity. Another woman heard nothing at all, only felt her dead son's hand slip into hers and squeeze once, conveying a lifetime of "I'm proud of you" in the pressure of small fingers. The content is always love, but the form is custom, a melody only you know, a scent from childhood, the exact weight of forgiveness you never believed you deserved. These messages do not fade the way memories do. They settle in the bones. Years later, in the middle of an argument or a depression, the love returns unbidden, as fresh as the moment it was given. People say it is like carrying a small sun in the chest that never burns out. They become gentler with strangers, slower to anger, quicker to tears, because they know, quite literally, have been loved forever and can never again pretend otherwise. The body that was broken begins to mend at a speed medicine cannot chart. A man whose heart had been shredded by a bullet walked out of the ICU in 9 days instead of 9 months. The surgeons kept repeating, "Impossible," until the word lost meaning. A woman with compound fractures that should have taken a year to knit was dancing, slowly, carefully, at her daughter's wedding 6 weeks later. They do not heal because the damage was misdiagnosed. They heal because something that was never injured has returned carrying extra light. People who come back often say the same strange thing. The pain was waiting for them like a loyal dog that had been left outside. When they slid back into the body, the pain barked once, recognized its master, and lay down quietly. Inflammation drops overnight. White cell counts normalize without drugs. One child whose lungs had filled with drowning water woke coughing up only petals of light, according to his mother. The X-ray the next morning was clean as Sunday snow. Doctors write unexplained rapid recovery in careful secular language. The patients know better. They felt the place where suffering simply does not exist and brought a fragment of that place back inside their marrow. The fragment keeps working long after they forget the tunnel, the light, the music. Scar tissue softens years later for no reason. Old injuries stop aching when it rains. They become warm to the touch, as if running a low-grade fever of mercy. Some begin laying hands on others without thinking. Headaches vanish, grief eases, tumors shrink beneath palms that have recently remembered what hands were originally for. The gift is quiet, almost shy. It never announces itself. It simply refuses to let the body forget that it too was once welcomed home. It is not a thunderclap of revelation. It is quieter, more intimate. Every tongue that ever spoke, every dialect that ever lived or will live, arrives inside the mind like birds returning to a tree they always knew was theirs. A truck driver from rural Georgia wakes speaking Swahili to the Kenyan nurse who is restarting his heart. An elderly Japanese woman flatlines and revives quoting medieval French love poetry she has never encountered. The languages are not learned, they are remembered, the way you remember how to breathe after forgetting for a little while. For a few minutes or hours, the barrier dissolves. Accent, grammar, idiom, perfect. They comfort dying patients in tongues the patients spoke as children in countries they fled decades ago. They translate without hesitation the last words of a stroke victim whose family never knew he was praying in Aramaic. Then, as gently as it came, the gift recedes. The truck driver forgets every Swahili noun except Rafiki, friend, and smiles whenever he says it for the rest of his life. The Japanese woman can no longer recall a single line of French, yet she hums a chanson under her breath when she gardens, certain the roses understand. What remains is subtler than vocabulary. The ability to hear the meaning behind broken English, to sit with someone whose words are gone and still understand everything. They become the people others instinctively confess to on airplanes, in hospital waiting rooms, at bus stops. Something in their eyes says, I have stood where all languages are one, and I still recognize you. It does not arrive with trumpets or angels wearing name tags. It arrives like walking into the house you grew up in and realizing every light has been left on for you. The tunnel opens, the light gathers, and suddenly the body is cradled instead of crushed. It is warmer than any blanket, closer than skin, more maternal than the word mother has ever managed to be. People say it feels like being held by everything that has ever loved them all at once, without division. A soldier who lost both legs to a landmine described it as the opposite of the explosion. Where the blast tore outward, the tunnel gathered inward, collecting every scattered piece of him and whispering welcome. There is movement, but no hurry. There is direction, but no force. Many laugh inside it, the way you laugh when someone you adore finally wraps you up after you pretended you weren't cold. Tears are common, but they feel like relief, not sorrow's long exile ending. When the time comes to return, the hug does not let go all at once. It loosens slowly, the way a good parent loosens their grip on the first day of school, staying close enough to feel if you need to run back. People wake with the memory of pressure on their ribs, as if someone is still holding them while the heart learns its job again. For weeks afterward, strangers will say, "You look like you've been hugged by God," and the revived person will only smile because arguing would be rude, and because they are still, quietly, inside the hug that has no arms large enough for the entire world. Nothing. Not the miscarried child, not the marriage that ended, not the chances never taken, not the father who never said he was proud. It is all there, waiting, intact, smiling. The realization lands softly, the way snow lands on water without a sound. You see the moment your mother forgave you for something you never knew you did wrong. You feel the love that was trying to reach you the day you decided no one could ever love you. Every goodbye that felt final is revealed to have been only a pause in an endless conversation. People return unable to mourn the way they once did. Funerals become strangely joyful. They cry, but the tears taste like reunion. They touch photographs of the dead and whisper, "See you at home," the way other people say, "See you tomorrow." Widows stop wearing black after a few weeks. Orphans grow up certain they were never abandoned, only loaned to the world for a while. The knowledge that nothing real can be lost acts like an internal horizon. Everything below it may shift, but the line itself never moves. They live differently afterward. They keep fewer things, forgive more quickly, leave notes in library books that say, "You were always enough." When their own death finally arrives decades later, they are often found with faint smiles, as if someone just told them the gentlest, most unsurprising news in the universe. Everything you thought you lost has been keeping your place warm. He had mocked the idea for 72 years, read every atheist manifesto, delighted in debates, signed his letters, "Cheers," until the heat death of the universe. Then the aneurysm burst and the monitors sang their flatline hymn. When they brought him back, he was crying too hard to speak. After 3 days, he managed one sentence to his daughter. "It was bigger than I was ready for, and it knew my name." Many hardened skeptics return with the same sheepish grin, the look of someone who has lost a bet with the entire cosmos and is delighted to pay up. They do not become religious in the usual sense. They become quiet. The arguments fall out of them like loose change. One famous physicist woke asking for his mother, who had died when he was 3. He described her holding him in light that made the equations sing. He never published again, spent his remaining years in a garden telling children that the universe is friendly and death is a doorway someone kind is holding open. The smile is the giveaway, not triumphant, not converted, simply relieved, the way you smile when you realize the monster under the bed was only a pile of clothes all along. They touched something that had no need to argue, threaten, or persuade. It simply was, and in being, it answered every question they ever shouted at the dark ceilings. They come back softer, funnier, fond of everyone. They tease believers gently. "Turns out you were closer than I was, but we both missed the half of it," and spend the rest of their lives trying to return the smile they were given, certain that the debt is joyful and the interest is love. There is no corner for it, no shadowed alley where it can hide and wait. Sadness simply has no address in that place. People who arrive there feel the absence the way you feel the absence of gravity when you jump from a diving board, startling at first, then the most natural thing in the world. A woman whose entire life had been stitched together with grief said it was like stepping out of wet clothes she had mistaken for her own skin. She stood naked and warm and realized she had never once believed cold was the normal temperature of existing. No one there pretends to be happy. Pretense itself is impossible. The air is too honest. Joy is not loud or forced. It is quiet, spacious, the way a cathedral is quiet even when full of people. Some laugh until their sides hurt, an old expression that suddenly makes no sense because nothing hurts. But most simply breathe in a way they never breathed on earth. Slowly, deeply, as if every inhale is a homecoming. Children who died in pain arrive running, shouting with delight at the sheer fact of having legs again. Adults who carry decades of shame feel it lift like steam off morning grass and vanish before they can even name it. When they are sent back, a faint echo of that no sadness zone travels with them. Depression becomes foreign, like a language they once spoke fluently but can no longer recall. They still cry, at beauty now, never at worthlessness, and the tears feel clean, like rain on a window instead of acid on an open wound. Friends say they have changed. The returned ones only smile and say, "I visited a country where sadness is endangered, and some of the air came home in my lungs." It is shown, not told. One moment you are hurrying through the corridors of your own story, and the next a vast screen, though it has no edges, unrolls every second of your life at once. Yet nothing is rushed. You see the slammed doors and the open arms, the lies and the reckless truths, the cruelties and the kindnesses, all playing simultaneously like an orchestra where every instrument is allowed its solo without drowning the rest. And somehow the only notes that keep ringing afterward are the ones made of love. A man who had abandoned his family watched himself leave and felt for the first time the exact weight of his children's confusion. But the silence after the door closed. He braced for shame, but shame never came. Instead, he felt his children, now grown on the other side, place their hands on his shoulders and say, "We understand now, come here." Every moment he had judged himself unforgivable glowed softly, reframed by a mercy larger than his imagination. The cruel words, the missed birthdays, the nights he chose the bottle over their nightmares, all of it was still there, but bathed in a light that revealed how even his worst failures had been turned, by hands he could not see, into someone else's strength. When the review ends, nothing is erased, yet nothing stings anymore. Only love remains bright, like constellations that refuse to fade at dawn. People return unable to hold grudges. They forgive ex-spouses in hospital parking lots, write letters to childhood bullies, call estranged siblings at 3 a.m. just to say, "I saw it all and the love was louder." They live the rest of their days trying to make the dim scenes brighter for everyone still stuck in the theater. It ceases to march. Past and future fold into the present the way a blanket folds when you pull it around your shoulders on a cold night. A century can pass in the space of one held breath, or a single heartbeat can stretch wide enough to contain every birthday you will ever have. People meet their own death and feel no shock. It is simply another room in the same house. They watch themselves being born and recognize the same eyes looking out of the infant face. A nurse who died briefly during surgery said it was like holding every photograph of her life in one hand and realizing they were all the same picture taken from slightly different angles. She kissed her own elderly face, laughed at her teenage awkwardness, and stroked the hair of the terrified 5-year-old who had just lost her mother. All at once, all herself. There was no regret, only a tender amusement at how seriously she had treated sequences that were never truly separate. Those who return often lose their terror of aging. They touch grey hair and wrinkles with affection, the way you touch a well-loved book whose pages have softened. Deadlines feel absurd. They are you, late or early, when the clock was always a polite fiction. They move through days with a relaxed curiosity, tasting each moment twice, once for the story it seems to be, and once for the larger stillness it truly is. You feel them arrive like warm rain on parched ground. Every person you ever handed a cup of coffee to, every stranger you let merge in traffic, every child you smiled at in a supermarket, they all step forward at once and place their gratitude directly into your chest. There is no sound, yet you hear 10,000 quiet thank yous braided together. Some are from people still living who never got to say it. Some are from those already on the other side who watched you from windows you didn't know were there. A paramedic who revived after a car crash felt the man he had pulled from a burning vehicle 20 years earlier embrace him and whisper, "You gave me one more Christmas with my daughter." A woman who once gave her last $20 to a homeless teenager felt that teenager, now grown and safe, kneel and press the memory of that money back into her palm, multiplied into a lifetime of warmth. The gratitude is never generic. It is specific, detailed, and unbearably kind. When they return, they often become compulsive givers of small, unnoticed generosities, leaving extra tip money, writing encouraging notes on receipts, holding doors an extra second. They know the ledger is real, and every unnoticed kindness is actually the loudest instrument in the orchestra. They live inside a constant quiet celebration, humming with the echo of all those thank yous still arriving like late guests to a party that never ends. It does not creep away. It does not hide in corners to return later. It meets the boundless welcome and simply melts, the way ice meets summer ocean. People describe the exact second, a lifetime of fear, of death, of failure, of being unlovable, gathers itself for one last assault, then looks into the light and recognizes home. There is a soft exhale, almost a laugh, and fear dissolves mid-breath. An old soldier who had slept with a pistol under his pillow for 50 years after the war felt the terror of night ambushes rise up one final time. Then it saw what was waiting and laid down its weapon. He woke in the hospital laughing, actually laughing, and asked the nurse to take the gun from his house and melt it into something useful. Many experiencers say the moment of surrender felt like the first unforced breath of their entire life. Afterward, they walk through the same world, airports, cancer wards, war zones, without the low hum of dread that most people accept as normal. They still feel caution, still lock doors, still cry at funerals, but the background terror is gone. They become the people others instinctively sit beside on turbulent flights, the ones who can hold a dying hand without flinching. Fearlessness, it turns out, is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of a larger love that has already survived every imaginable dark. They open their eyes in the recovery room, and the first thing they notice is the silence where a roar used to live. For decades, a small, shrill voice had whispered, "What if you die? What if they leave? What if you are not enough?" Every night at 3 a.m., every time the phone rang unknown, every time the chest tightened for no reason. That voice is simply gone, not quieted, not meditated away. Gone, the way darkness is gone when the sun clears the horizon. A woman who had panic attacks since childhood told her therapist, "It's like someone came in and unplugged the fear machine while I was out of the room." She waited weeks for it to reboot. It never did. People who return speak of death the way you speak of a country you have visited and loved, familiar, gentle, slightly amused that anyone could be afraid of it. They still buckle seatbelts, still buy life insurance, still flinch at loud noises, but the flinch is reflex, not dread. They sit with the dying the way other people sit with sleeping children. No urgency, no terror, only a soft certainty that the next breath belongs to another place entirely. Spouses notice it first in small ways. The returned one forgets to lock the door at night, not from carelessness, but from a bone-deep knowledge that no real harm can reach what matters. They laugh more easily, especially at funerals, not because they are callous, because they have seen the ending and it is tender. Years later, doctors ask them to rate their fear of death on a scale of 1 to 10. Most of them pause, puzzled, and finally answer 0, then hasten to add that they love life more, not less. They garden with new ferocity, kiss longer, stay up all night talking, waste no anger on small things. They have looked over the edge and saw not an abyss but a living room with the porch light left on. The only fear they still carry is the ordinary, healthy kind, the fear of hurting someone they love before they have time to make it right. Everything else has been burned away by a mercy too large to fit inside old anxieties. You expect strangers there, or at worst distant ancestors wearing robes and benevolent smiles. Instead, you are surrounded by people who feel like you have known them since the first fire was lit on earth. A man who died on a climbing wall met a woman whose laugh made his chest ache with recognition. When he returned, he could not explain why he wept every time he heard Nina Simone for the rest of his life. Another found himself in a circle with 6 others, none of whom he had ever met in this life, yet they finished one another's sentences and passed him bread as if the table had been set for him since the beginning of time. They do not introduce themselves with names. Names feel suddenly clumsy. Recognition happens in the eyes first, then floods the entire body. You know their childhood griefs, their private victories, the exact moment they decided to be kind on a day no one noticed. You feel their love for you the way you feel sunlight on bare skin, unmistakable, unearned, endless. Some later discover these strangers are people they will meet decades from now in ordinary life, a child not yet born, a nurse who will hold their hand at the actual end, a barista who will write, "You are enough," on a coffee cup one random Tuesday. Others recognize souls they have traveled with many times before, wearing different faces, playing different roles, always finding one another in the crowd. When they come back, they often become magnetic in quiet ways. People they barely know tell them secrets on first meeting. Old friends say, "You feel like family now. Did something happen?" Something did. They carry the residue of that instant belonging, and it leaks out in the tone of their voice, the length of their hugs, the way they look at you as if they have been waiting for you at the same window for centuries. Loneliness becomes impossible for them. They remember too clearly that we are never actually strangers, only family with temporary amnesia. They glow the way healthy things glow, from the inside out. A forest there is not scenery, it is choir. Every leaf is singing in a key that makes the heart grow 3 sizes at once. A little girl who died briefly from fever came back describing trees that breathed out colors instead of oxygen, colors that tasted like her grandmother's hugs. A botanist who flatlined during surgery woke weeping because he had understood, finally, why plants lean toward light. They are leaning toward home. The grass does not bend underfoot. It rises to meet you, resilient and affectionate. Flowers turn their faces the way puppies do, eager, unashamed. Some people stoop to touch petals and feel memories that are not their own. A battle fought under these trees 1,000 years ago. A proposal, a child's first steps, all stored in chlorophyll and dew. The air smells like every good day you ever lived, distilled. Birds are not flying overhead. They are flying through you, carrying messages in songs that translate directly into forgiveness. Those who return often develop sudden green thumbs. Sick houseplants revive overnight under their care. They walk barefoot in city parks and feel the pulse of roots older than language. One man began hugging trees in public, unembarrassed, because he remembered how it felt to be the tree and to be hugged at the same time. They become fierce about living things, quietly planting seeds in vacant lots, rescuing insects from swimming pools, refusing to kill spiders. They have seen the other side of photosynthesis, and it looks exactly like love learning how to stand still long enough to become leaves. You notice it the way fish would notice wetness if they were suddenly lifted into desert air. Breathing is no longer necessary, yet you have never felt more alive. The chest rises and falls only out of habit or perhaps courtesy. The real exchange is happening elsewhere, cell to cell, with the same light that holds galaxies together. People laugh at the discovery, delighted, the way children laugh when they first float on their backs in deep water and realize the water was holding them all along. A dancer who died on the operating table said it felt like breathing through her entire skin, as if every pore had become a mouth drinking in pure being. There was rhythm but no labor, expansion but no effort. Some feel their lungs fill with music instead of air. Others say it is like being kissed from the inside by everything that has ever lived. The body left behind on the table looks pale and machine-pumped, while the real self is incandescent, drawing sustenance directly from presence itself. When they return to the old habit of lungs, many struggle at first. Air feels thin, almost rude. Asthma disappears overnight in some. Others develop the habit of long, deliberate breaths, as if reminding the body how it felt to be unlimited. They become the people who can calm a panicked child just by breathing in the same room, who fall asleep instantly, who never seem to run out of energy even at 90. They have remembered that breath was always a metaphor, and now the metaphor keeps whispering the truth every minute they remain. It is not a wall, not a gate with a stern angel. It is more like the gentle surface tension on a soap bubble, beautiful, permeable, intelligent. You can press your hand against it and feel it yield slightly, affectionately, the way a loving parent yields when a child who begs for 5 more minutes. Most feel it as a membrane of pure compassion that says, in no language at all, you may visit, you may taste, you may carry some of this home in your pockets, but you may not move in yet. The rent has not been fully paid in the currency of ordinary days. A firefighter who reached it after being trapped in a collapse felt the boundary kiss his forehead and whisper, "Your wife still needs your laugh at the kitchen table." A young mother felt it cradle her newborn's future and send her back with the message, "She will need your arms around her the night she thinks no one understands." The boundary never pushes, it simply reminds. There is a softness to the refusal that makes harsh rejection impossible. Many turn back willingly, even eagerly, because the love on this side of the membrane suddenly feels urgent in a way it never did before. Those who have touched it live afterward with a quiet luminosity around the edges. They move as if they are still partly on the other side, careful not to break the soap bubble of ordinary life with too much weight. They become gentle with time, refusing to waste it on resentment, hurrying only toward forgiveness and bedtime stories and the last piece of pie offered to someone else. They know the boundary is still there, thinner than breath, waiting with infinite patience for the moment when the final gentle yes will be spoken and the visitor will, at last, be allowed to stay. They come back crying and cannot stop for hours, sometimes days. Not the choked, ashamed tears of grief, but the kind that pour clean and unstoppable, as if every dammed-up river of joy in the world has chosen their eyes as its outlet. Nurses learn to keep extra boxes of tissues near certain beds. A teenage boy revived after a motorcycle wreck laughed and sobbed at the same time until he was hoarse, trying to explain that the tears were not pain. They were the only way his body had left to applause. A grandmother in cardiac arrest woke reaching for faces no one in the room could see, whispering thank you, in a voice cracked open by wonder. People who have never cried in their adult lives suddenly flood. Hard men who prided themselves on dry eyes at funerals fall apart in grocery store aisles because the bananas look impossibly golden. The tears carry no sadness. They are pure overflow, the heart's clumsy attempt to speak a language too large for words. One woman said it felt like her soul had been holding its breath for 55 years and finally let go in one long, trembling exhale that happened to come out through her eyes. The crying eventually slows, but the capacity for it stays widened forever. They become the people who tear up at parades, at weddings of strangers, at the sound of a child practicing violin, badly but earnestly. Joy has moved into the house permanently and left all the windows open. Some cry hardest when they realize they have to return. They feel the tug of the silver cord, and the tears come then too, not from reluctance but from the unbearable sweetness of being wanted both places at once. They weep for the beauty of the assignment still unfinished, for every ordinary sunrise they suddenly cannot wait to see again. When the tears finally dry, their faces look younger, as if joy has sanded off decades of caution and cynicism. Doctors note lower cortisol levels for years afterward. The patients only know they have been crying themselves clean. There is a building, though it has no walls, and inside it every moment that ever happened waits, patient and luminous. You do not walk the aisles come to you. One man found himself standing before the exact second his father almost left when he was 7. Only this time he saw the hesitation, the hand on the doorknob trembling, the silent decision to stay. Another woman opened a book that was also a breeze and read the afternoon she spent building a sand castle with her brother who would die at 19. The grains of sand still glittered with their childhood gold. Nothing is missing. Every laugh, every sigh, every unspoken kindness is shelved in perfect order, yet the order feels like music rather than catalogue. Children who visit often return able to draw maps of the place. Long corridors of soft light, shelves that breathe, books made of water and fire and birdsong. Adults struggle harder with description. They say it is quieter than any library on earth, yet full of voices you recognize. You can hold an entire lifetime in one hand and it weighs nothing. Some spend what feels like years browsing, though no time passes in the body on the table. Others simply sit and let the moments find them, like cats jumping into an available lap. When they come back, they treat memory differently. They stop trying to cling to it, stop mourning its unreliability. They know the real library is keeping everything safe. Photographs lose their desperation. Diaries become love letters to the archivists on the other side. They live with a quiet amusement at how seriously we take forgetting, the way parents are amused when toddlers insist a missing toy is gone forever. Sometimes, late at night, They feel a page turn in the distance and smile in their sleep, certain that whatever they just mislaid has already been tenderly reshelved. You are both. The paradox does not strain, it sings. One moment you are smaller than a seed, a single note in a symphony so vast you cannot hear the edges. The next you are larger than galaxies, holding every star like a child holds fireflies. The smallness is not humiliating, and the vastness is not lonely. You feel the grief of every grieving person, and it fits comfortably inside your chest without crowding your own joy. You are the tear on a stranger's cheek and the laughter in a kitchen 3 continents away, simultaneously, without division. A pilot who died in a crash felt himself shrink to the size of the first cell that ever decided to become a human being, and at the same time expand to hold the entire history of flight, from Icarus to the Voyager probes. The sensation was not frightening, it was the relief of finally wearing clothes that fit perfectly after a lifetime of borrowing hand-me-downs. Many report resting in this dual size like a secret. They can stand in crowded subways feeling exquisitely small and completely necessary, or lie in a hospital bed feeling immense enough to cradle the planet's sorrow without breaking. Returned, they often become the people who can sit with unbearable contradictions, celebrating a birth and mourning a death in the same afternoon without fracturing. They move through life with a relaxed posture, shoulders down, as if the body has finally remembered it was custom-made for a soul that was always both grain of sand and entire beach. They come gently, like dreams you do not have to wake from. A woman saw herself as an Egyptian priestess pouring water over the hands of a weary traveler who would one day be her abusive husband in 21st century Chicago. She felt only tenderness for them both. A boy met the soldier he had been in Verdun, mud-caked and screaming, and embraced him without horror, understanding at last why he had always been afraid of loud noises. The lives appear not as a line, but as a necklace of beads, each one luminous, each one you. There is no judgment in the seeing, only context. Every cruelty you committed is shown alongside the exact wound that birthed it, every kindness alongside the courage it quietly required. Nothing is excused and nothing is condemned. Everything is understood. Some lives flash by in seconds, others linger like favorite songs. You feel the joy of the queen you once were and the despair of the beggar, and both feel equally yours, equally cherished. When the parade of faces ends, the bead string does not drop. It is gently coiled and placed in your hands as a gift. Many return with strange new phobias or sudden skills. Terror of deep water explained by a death by drowning in Atlantis. Perfect French learned in a single afternoon because you spoke it fluently in 1789. More often the past lives settle as quiet background music, a soft reassurance that the soul has been practicing being human for a very long time and has gotten quite good at love. They stop fearing they are new at this. They remember they are ancient beginners, and the combination makes them fearless. It speaks in the voice you have been waiting your whole life to hear, though you did not know it had a voice. It does not say you are enough the way a consolation prize is offered. It says it the way gravity says to an apple, "Come here," the way dawn says to the dark, "Move over now." The sentence lands in the center of the chest and rearranges every broken piece into belonging. One man, a recovering alcoholic who had hated himself for 30 years, heard it and felt every bottle he ever drank turn into light inside his veins. A girl bullied until she stopped eating heard it and began to taste food again the same day. The voice is never loud. It does not need to be. It has all the time in the world and no interest in argument. It simply states the fact that was true before you were born and will be true after galaxies cool. You, exactly as you are, with every scar and stammer and secret kindness, are enough. Some hear it as their own voice, older and kinder. Others hear a choir made of everyone who ever loved them imperfectly on earth, finally getting the harmony right. They return carrying the sentence like a small, smooth stone in the pocket of the heart. When life screams otherwise, when failure or shame or diagnosis tries to speak louder, they touch the stone and the voice repeats itself. Patient, amused, certain. They become the people who can look you in the eye after you confess your worst and say without hesitation, "Still enough." They say it because they were told by the only authority that never lied, and the stone has never grown cold in all the years since. You rise until the planet turns beneath you like a small blue marble held in a child's palm. From that height, the borders dissolve first. Nations become soft quilts of light and shadow. Then even the quilts disappear. Cities are only scattered embers, roads the faint silver tracks of ants. You see weather systems swirling like cream in coffee, hurricanes wearing their slow white spirals with the calm dignity of dancers who know the music is eternal. The curvature of Earth becomes visible, fragile and perfect, and something inside your chest that was always clenched loosens its fist. People linger there longer than anywhere else in the journey. A soldier who died in Syria floated above the desert and watched moonlight slide across the same sand where he had been afraid hours earlier. The fear looked absurd from that distance, a child's tantrum in a sandbox. A mother who lost her baby to SIDS saw the night side of the planet jeweled with 1 billion small lights and understood, without words, that every one of those lights was someone keeping vigil for someone else. There is no speech, only recognition. This is the home we keep forgetting we share. Oceans breathe in long, slow rhythms older than sorrow. Ice caps glow with a tenderness that makes you want to apologize for every plastic straw, every war, every unkind word. When they return, they can never again look at satellite photos the same way. They touch globes in classrooms with something close to reverence. Many become quiet activists, not the shouting kind, but the sort who plant trees at dawn and pick up trash on beaches without posting about it. They have seen how small and beautiful and peaceful the whole troubled place looks from the porch of eternity, and the memory acts like an internal North Star. Every act of cruelty is suddenly in poor taste, every act of care suddenly obvious. They live the rest of their days trying to make the view from above match the view from inside their own kitchen windows. There is no pain because pain has no fuel. Worry burns anxiety, anxiety burns time. But here, time is an ocean you are floating on rather than a river dragging you. The mind relaxes its grip on tomorrow and yesterday and discovers they were never separate from now. A man who spent his life calculating retirement accounts felt every future worry simply evaporate, like mist off a lake at sunrise. He understood, with the gentle shock of meeting an old friend, that the present moment is infinitely spacious and entirely safe. People describe it as the first time they ever truly rested. Bodies on the table may be broken, bank accounts empty, relationships in ruins, yet the one who travels meets a warmth that needs nothing fixed. It is not denial, it is perspective. Every problem is suddenly the size it actually is, small, and every love the size it actually is, boundless. The combination is devastating in the kindest way. People return unable to take their own dramas seriously for long. They still pay bills and go to therapy and apologize when they are wrong, but a soft laughter runs underneath everything. The laughter of someone who has seen the whole battlefield from the air and knows the war was always about who would carry the groceries in from the car. They become almost impossible to insult. Criticism slides off because they have stood in the place where the only verdict that matters has already been tenderly spoken. Beloved. They move slowly, speak softly, touch objects as if the objects are on loan from a museum labeled temporary. And when real pain does arrive, and it still does, they meet it with a strange warmth, the way you meet rain after remembering how essential it is for gardens. They arrive home carrying invisible suitcases. Inside are not objects but qualities, a patience that used to stretch like taffy, a kindness that no longer needs a reason, a calm that sits in the chest like a cat on a sunlit sill. A construction worker who came back after a scaffolding collapse began showing up 10 minutes early to every job, not from duty but from delight in the simple fact that the day existed for giving. A CEO famous for ruthless layoffs started anonymously paying employees' medical bills and could not explain why, except that it felt ridiculous not to. The gifts are never flashy. No one levitates or speaks in tongues. Well, almost never. Instead, they become the people who can sit with a crying stranger on a park bench for an hour without checking their phone. They tip 50% and leave notes that say, "You made my day." They forgive debts, literal and emotional, with an ease that looks like carelessness but is actually memory. They remember how little any of it weighs when seen from the perspective of the place that sent them back. Children raised by returned parents describe a childhood strangely free of shouting. The parent had seen how short the years are from above and refused to spend any of them in noise. The gifts grow rather than diminish. Decades later, the same calm radiates from 90-year-old eyes that once stared into defibrillator paddles. They become the grandparents strangers trust with their secrets, the neighbors who remember birthdays no one else does, the quiet centers around which frightened families orbit in crises. They have brought back souvenirs from a country whose economy runs entirely on love, and they spend the rest of their lives giving away the currency until their pockets are empty and their hearts are somehow fuller. They are 3 or 4 or 7 years old, clutching crayons like magic wands, and they draw what they saw. Not tunnels or angels in the Sunday school sense, but light so vivid it needs 6 crayons at once just to hint at the color. They layer yellow over orange over pink until the paper tears, then tape it together and keep going. Teachers find these drawings taped to refrigerators, slipped into library books, mailed to astronauts because you are closer. Years, sometimes decades later, the same child, now adult, will stumble across the drawing in an old box and feel the entire experience rush back like aroma from an opened vial of perfume. One boy in Minnesota drew a sun with a face that was also his deceased grandfather's face. 20 years later, he became an astronomer and named his first discovered comet after that grandfather. A girl in Brazil filled an entire sketchbook with swirling blues and golds she called the place Mommy went when she was sleeping for 3 days. Her mother had been in a coma after a car accident. The drawings were the first thing the mother asked for when she woke. Many of these pictures glow faintly in the dark for reasons no physicist can explain. Parents keep them in fireproof boxes the way other families keep deeds to land. The children rarely talk about the drawings afterward. They grow up, date, get jobs, forget the crayons. Then one day they hold their own child and the memory returns entire, and they cry the clean, astonished tears of people who realize the light never actually left the paper or their bones. The operating room is loud with urgency, but on the table, the patient is somewhere else. Then the heart stutters back, the eyes flutter open, and the patient starts talking about things that happened seconds ago while dead. They describe the surgeon's joke about weekend golf scores, the nurse's quiet prayer in Tagalog, the anesthesiologist stepping out to call his daughter because he thought the patient wouldn't make it. Word for word, gesture for gesture, accurate down to the color of the pen the resident dropped and retrieved without anyone noticing, except the one whose heart had stopped. Medical staff hate these moments and treasure them in equal measure. Charts fill with phrases like patient reported verified out-of-body observation, written in the careful language of people trying not to lose their jobs. Some doctors convert on the spot, others double down on skepticism until the next case and the next. The patients themselves are usually calm, almost apologetic. They did not try to spy. They simply found themselves floating near the ceiling, watching their own resuscitation the way you watch rain on a window from indoors, curious and slightly amused. Many develop an odd relationship with truth afterward. They can no longer bear small lies, even polite ones. They tell the cashier when they have been undercharged, confess childhood thefts to bewildered parents, refuse to exaggerate on resumes. They have seen how impossible it is to hide anything from the only audience that matters, and the relief of that discovery is addictive. They become terrible at poker and magnificent at marriage, because deception feels suddenly childish, like pretending you left the body when you never really do. There is a particular mercy in the moment just before sleep, when the day finally loosens its grip and the room grows quiet enough for regret to speak. Most nights, we carry the small, sharp stones of the day in our pockets. The sentence we snapped, the email we shouldn't have sent, the silence we gave when a voice was needed. We lie down, still clenched around them. Then comes the second chance no one announces. It arrives without ceremony, disguised as simple tiredness. The body asks to lie horizontal. The mind, exhausted from defending its mistakes, finally drops its shield. In that surrender, something tender happens. The same lips that spoke harshly now soften against the pillow. The same hands that gripped in frustration unclench. The day's failures are not erased. They are simply held differently, the way a parent holds a crying child until the sobbing eases, not because the hurt is gone, but because the hurting one is no longer alone with it. A goodnight kiss is never about perfection. It is about return. Lips touch forehead or cheek in the dark and say, without words, "I saw the worst of you today, and I am still here." Sleep, then, becomes a small resurrection. The heart that felt fractured at dinner beats whole again by midnight. The mind that replayed every wrong choice on a loop suddenly loses interest in the replay because a deeper rhythm has taken over. Inhale, exhale, forgive, release. This second chance feels warm because it is intimate and unearned. No apology was adequate, no restitution complete. Yet mercy leans in anyway and brushes the place where the day left its bruise. It does not deny the bruise, it simply covers it with something softer than judgment. Children know this instinctively. A bedtime kiss can mend 1,000 playground injustices. Adults forget until the night reminds them. Sometimes the kiss comes from another person, a partner who reaches across the bed, a child who pads in for one more tuck-in, a dog who sighs and lays its head on your ankle. More often, in the solitary hours, the kiss is internal. It is the quiet voice that finally says, "Enough. You did what you could with what you knew then. Tomorrow, you will know more." It is the body itself, wise and wordless, offering its own absolution in the form of slowed breath and heavy limbs. To receive this second chance is to remember that endings are miniature deaths and sleep is the kindest rehearsal for the final one. Each night, we practice letting go of who we were during the day so that we can wake up slightly less afraid of who we might yet become. The warmth lingers on the skin like evidence. You were harshly judged, most of all by yourself, and yet you were not abandoned. Dawn will come, yes, with its new demands, but for now the slate is not clean, it is simply held in gentler hands. That is why the goodnight kiss, whether real or remembered or imagined, feels like the most private miracle available to us. It tells the truth. You are still worthy of affection at your most unpolished, when the makeup is off, the temper spent, the failures tallied. Tomorrow you may again forget this. Tonight you do not have to. Tonight you are allowed to close your eyes believing that love has already cast its vote, and it voted to stay. The body is a good animal. When evening deepens, it lowers itself onto the mattress with the same ancient obedience horses show when they fold their legs beneath them on straw. Heartbeat slows, temperature drops, muscles let go of their endless small conversations with gravity. The room grows still. To any outside observer, you have stopped, but something slips its leash. While the body repairs its torn fibers and flushes yesterday's poisons, the real you, weightless and curious, steps out the back door of the skull. No passport required. You are suddenly on a shore where the sand is made of ground starlight, or standing in the kitchen of your childhood home, though the house was demolished decades ago. Time folds like silk. You meet your grandfather, who died before you were born, and he knows your name. This is not a dream in the dismissive sense. It is a different mode of being. The body needs its 8 hours of maintenance, but consciousness is not on the same schedule. Freed from the tyranny of clocks and cortisol, the real you travels. Sometimes the journey is gentle, floating above the rooftops of the town you left at 17, waving at the younger version of yourself still crying in the driveway. Sometimes it is fierce, standing at the edge of a cliff while every unsaid apology howls around you like wind. The paradox is exquisite. The more deeply the body rests, the farther you go. A racing mind keeps you chained to the mattress, replaying arguments in fluorescent light. But when the body is finally trusted to lie down without interference, the tether loosens and off you soar. Sailors of the inner world know this. They cultivate stillness the way others cultivate ambition. There is a moment, if you have ever woken from anesthesia or deep meditation, when you recognize the sensation. The body was absent, yet you were more present than ever. Sleep is the slow, nightly version of that recognition. The real you remembers it is not the meat and bone currently digesting dinner. It is the awareness that can watch the meat and bone from a slight distance, the way one might watch a beloved pet sleeping by the fire. And so the body rests, faithful creature, keeping the heart pumping and the lungs waving like slow bellows while you go visiting. You collect images you will never fully translate. A blue door that opens onto a field of red grass, a conversation in a language you do not speak yet perfectly understand. You return carrying peace the way a child carries a seashell from the beach, certain it is precious, unable to explain exactly why. When the first bird calls or the alarm insists, the traveler is yanked home. You open your eyes inside the same skull, the same aging envelope of skin. For a moment, there is vertigo. How strange to be poured back into time, into weight, into the small worries waiting like patient dogs. But something has shifted. The peace you carried in your heart during the night travel is still there, cupped in the chest. The body needed rest. The real you needed perspective. Both were given. The return is never abrupt. If sleep is a tide that carries you out, waking is the long, languid pull back to shore. There is a phase, neither fully asleep nor yet awake, when you are aware of both worlds at once. The dream still dissolving on your tongue like cotton candy, the room slowly resolving into familiar shapes. This is the holy in-between. You feel yourself being reassembled. Memories of the night's voyages linger like perfume. You were flying. You were forgiven. You were 7 years old again, and your mother was singing. The details slip even as you grasp for them, but the feeling stays. It is peace, unmistakable, a soft weight against the sternum. You have no idea how you earned it. You only know you are carrying it the way one might carry a sleeping bird, careful not to startle it awake. The body participates in the return with exquisite slowness. A finger twitches, testing gravity. The eyes flutter but do not open. There is no rush. This is the opposite of the morning dread most of us know, when the mind lunges into the day like a boxer entering the ring. Here the mind is still half dissolved, happy to be nobody for a little longer. Peace, in this moment, is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of proportion. The things that loomed monstrous at midnight have shrunk to their proper size during the night. You see them now from a slight height, the way you might see toys scattered on a rug after the child has gone to bed. They are still there, but they no longer own the room. Slowly drifting back, you rehearse your re-entry. You notice the particular shade of dark behind your eyelids, the temperature of the air on your cheek, the distant hum of a refrigerator. Ordinary things, yet they feel gifted. The heart, which spent part of the night racing through dream forests, now beats with the calm certainty of a drummer who knows the song is almost over and it ends well. There is a temptation to clutch at the peace, to worry it will evaporate the moment you fully wake, but peace carried from the night country is sturdier than that. It has roots. It was not manufactured by positive thinking. It was remembered. Somewhere beyond the mind's chatter, you touched what is always true. You are held, you are temporary but not trivial. You are loved beyond your capacity to ruin yourself. So you let the return happen at its own pace. You do not fling off the covers like someone late for a meeting with shame. You allow the body to finish its slow unfurling, the way a fern uncurls in morning light. And when at last you open your eyes, the peace is still there, no longer a sleepy bird, but a quiet passenger who has decided to stay for the day. Some mornings the passenger is harder to find, buried under immediate anxieties. But even then, if you pause, you can feel the faint outline of where it sat. It left its imprint, the way a warm body leaves an imprint on cool sheets. That is enough. The knowledge that peace visited once means it knows the way back. The fear of being alone is older than language. It lives in the infant's wail when the parent steps out of sight, in the widower's empty side of the bed, in every late-night scroll through contacts wondering who would answer at 3 a.m. We spend enormous energy proving we are not alone. Parties, marriages, social media, even arguments, anything to confirm the existence of an other. Then comes the strange hour when we must voluntarily turn off the lights and lie down in the dark, apparently alone with ourselves. For many, this is the hardest appointment of the day. The mind, finally without distraction, rehearses every rejection, every coming loss. Sleep feels impossible because aloneness feels lethal. Yet night after night, against all evidence, we do fall asleep. Something deeper than thought overrides the fear. The body curls on its side the way it did in the womb, knees drawn up, palms together under the cheek, and remembers, I was never alone, even then. I floated in fluid, tethered by a cord, fed by a heart that was not my own. The memory is cellular. Falling asleep tonight knowing you are never alone is not positive affirmation. It is biological, historical, mystical fact. The room may be empty of other humans, but it is crowded with presence. Ancestors stand at the foot of the bed in a line that stretches back to the first woman who ever nursed a baby under stars. The air you breathe was once inside the lungs of redwoods, of whales, of the lover who left and the friend who stayed. Every atom in your body was forged in a star that exploded out of loneliness into relationship. More intimately, something breathes with you. Call it God. Call it consciousness. Call it the self with a capital S. It does not leave when the lights go out. It is the witness that watches thoughts arise and fall, the space in which loneliness itself appears. You are never alone because you are never only the one who feels alone. There is always the one who notices the feeling, and that one is not afraid of the dark. Children fall asleep clutching stuffed animals. Adults clutch worries. Both are attempts to externalize companionship, but the wisest know the companionship was never external. It is the very stuff of awareness. To fall asleep knowing this is to relax at the deepest level. The jaw unclenches, the belly softens. The nervous system, which spent the day scanning for threat, finally stands down because the ultimate threat, being utterly alone, has been revealed as illusion. Tonight the house may creak, the neighbor's TV may murmur through the wall, or there may be perfect silence. None of it determines your aloneness. You lie down inside a vast companionship that has never left you, even on the worst nights of your mind can replay. Sleep comes as naturally as breath once this is remembered. The body sleeps, the soul keeps watch, humming the lullaby you forgot you knew. You are held, you are held, you are held. Good night is a small word for a vast departure. When we say it, we are blessing someone's leaving. Not a permanent leaving, only the nightly one, yet it rehearses the larger farewell we rarely speak of. We kiss the forehead, tuck the blanket, turn off the light, and secretly ask the universe to be gentle with the traveler. To dream softly on the edge of forever is to hover in the thin place where the personal self thins out and something larger breathes through. Dreams are not Hollywood productions for our amusement. They are border crossings. On one side is the tight story of me with its deadlines and regrets. On the other is the country without edges. Most nights we straddle the border, 1 foot in each. Softly is the crucial wish. We have all woken from nightmares rigid with sweat, heart hammering as if we actually fell from that building or lost that child. The body cannot tell the difference between imagined danger and real. A harsh dream bruises the soul the way a fall bruises flesh. So we whisper softly, the way we might whisper easy to a horse being loaded into a trailer. Let the crossing be kind. The edge of forever is not a cliff to fall from. It is the shoreline where waves of ordinary time lap against the ocean of the timeless. Dreams happen right there, in the foam. You may find yourself walking a beach that is both your childhood lake and the surface of the moon. You may speak to the dead as easily as the living. Nothing is strange, because everything is finally makes sense in the way music makes sense without words. To dream softly, there is to trust the night. It is to believe that whatever visits, whether memory or archetype or sheer invention, comes as a messenger, not a mugger. Even the terrifying dreams, seen from the morning side, often reveal themselves as fierce love wearing a Halloween mask, trying to wake you to something you've been sleeping through. When we wish this for another, may you dream softly on the edge of forever. We are blessing their temporary death. Every sleep is a small dying. The eye dissolves, boundaries blur. We merge back into the whole for a few hours. We practice the return every morning. The softer the practice, the less fear attends the final one. So good night. May the dreams that find you tonight be gentle companions, not interrogators. May you walk the edge without vertigo, feel the wind of eternity without being blown away. May you bring back only what serves the waking life, and may the rest dissolve like mist. And if you wake tomorrow, unable to remember a single dream, trust that the visit happened anyway. The edge of forever leaves traces subtler than memory, a lightness in the chest, a momentary certainty that everything is, underneath, all right. That is the souvenir from a night spent dreaming softly where the self thins and the soul thickens, right at the border of everything. Good night. Travel well. Let the last thought you carry into the dark be lighter than breath. The night does not ask you to solve anything. It only asks you to set the burden down for a few hours. Whatever felt urgent at 10 o'clock becomes optional in the small hours. The mind, exhausted from carrying its own importance, finally agrees to be small. Let the last thought you offer the darkness be something weightless, the memory of wind in tall grass, the way candlelight once moved across a beloved face, the single word thank you repeated until it loses meaning and becomes pure sound. These thoughts float. They do not sink you. They are the opposite of rumination. They are release disguised as memory. When the house settles and the world forgets your name, there is a moment, different every night, when the last car passes, the refrigerator stops humming, and even the blood in your ears grows quiet. In that sudden hush, the world exhales and forgets you exist. You are no longer employee, parent, debtor, dreamer, failure, hope. You are simply the awareness that notices the silence. This is freedom wearing the clothes of abandonment. Most of us flinch from it, reach for a phone, a worry, anything to be remembered again. But if you stay, if you let the forgetting happen, something tender rises, the sense of being cradled anonymity. Nobody needs anything from you right now. You could vanish and the stars would not dim. That is not a threat. It is the softest permission ever granted. Rest here, unnamed, unneeded, utterly safe. The blanket remembers every body that ever slept beneath it. Fabric holds history the way trees hold rings. This quilt was pieced by a grandmother whose hands you never held. That sheet carried the fevered dreams of your childhood chickenpox. The pillowcase still knows the shape of a lover's head from a decade ago. When you slide between them tonight, you are not alone. You are continuing a long, quiet conversation across time. The cotton has learned how to hold grief and joy with equal gentleness. It does not judge the new weight you bring. It simply adjusts, the way water adjusts to whatever stone is dropped into it. Lie still and feel the blanket doing its ancestral work, keeping the heat of every body that ever trusted to it, offering it back to you now like a long, slow inhale of inherited mercy. Somewhere a river is dreaming of reaching the sea, and you are part of that dream. While you sleep, the planet continues its ancient business. Rivers lean forward in their beds, pulled by a promise made long before humans invented loneliness. Glaciers sigh and release their cold memories. Wolves lift their heads to taste the wind. You are not separate from any of it. The same water that will be ocean tomorrow is, tonight, coursing through your own veins. When you let go of waking, you rejoin the larger dreaming. The river dreams of salt it has never tasted. You dream of peace you have not yet earned. Both dreams are valid. Both are moving, molecule by molecule, toward fulfillment. Sleep is the moment you consent to being part of something that began before you and will continue long after. The river does not worry about arriving. It simply travels. So do you, every night, whether you know it or not. May the dark be a mother tonight and not a thief. We were all born from darkness, 9 months floating in a warm, lightless sea, rocked by a heartbeat that asked nothing of us. The night can remember its first job. When it comes as mother, it strokes the hair back from the fevered forehead of your thoughts. It says, hush, the way only someone who has carried you before can say it. It does not steal your daylight treasures. It keeps them safe on the bedside table of the unconscious until morning. A mother dark night leaves you heavier with rest, lighter with trust. You wake with the imprint of having been held by something that needed nothing from you except your willingness to be small again for a little while. Let the quiet between heartbeats be wide enough for everything to fit. Between one beat and the next, there is a silence longer than galaxies. In that gap lives every unsaid apology, every unwept tear, every small joy you forgot to celebrate. Most days, the heart rushes past this silence, too busy keeping you upright to linger. But when you lie down and the rhythm slows, the gap widens. Suddenly, there is room. The regrets slide in and discover they are not poisonous after all. They are only tired. The joys stretch out like cats in sunlight. Nothing is solved, yet everything fits. The heart, wise engine, does not argue with what it finds in the quiet. It simply makes space. Beat, rest, beat, rest. In the widening silence, you are not fixed, only finally accommodated. Close your eyes and become the lullaby you always needed. There was a song someone should have sung but didn't. A hand that should have smoothed your hair but was busy. A voice that should have said you are safe but said other things instead. Tonight you can become that missing tenderness now. The arms that hold you can be your own, folded just so. The voice can be the quiet one inside that finally speaks without demand. Rock yourself the way the ocean rocks the shore, endlessly, without goal, simply because motion is how love expresses itself when words run out. You contain the lullaby, you always did. Tonight, let it rise through the chest, soft as breath, and sing the child in you past every old fear into the deep, dreamless center, where everything is already all right. The ceiling becomes sky once the light is gone. In the dark, plaster and paint lose their authority. The small cracks you curse in daylight turn into rivers of moonlight. The water stain from last year's leak becomes a continent you have never visited. Lie still long enough, and the ceiling lifts away entirely. You are no longer under anything. You are simply in the night, open to whatever weather moves across the upper air. Owls pass overhead without sound. Old constellations lean down to listen. There is no roof, only the thinnest membrane between your breath and the breath of everything that has ever lived. The room was never a box. It was a pause. Now the pause is over, and you are outdoors without having moved. Let the day's sharp edges be sanded by slow breathing. Every wound you collected today, The careless word, the unseen effort, the quiet humiliation arrives with corners. They catch on the lining of your chest like burrs. But breath is an ancient carpenter. Inhale, and the edges are lifted. Exhale, and they are turned. Again, again. Hours of this patient sanding while you drift. By the third slow breath, the insult becomes lesson, rejection becomes space, failure becomes the rough draft of something truer. You do not have to help. You only have to keep breathing. The night is generous with its time. By morning, the splinters have become sawdust, ready to be swept away by the first honest laugh or the first honest tear, whichever comes first. The moon is keeping your secrets tonight. She has been doing it for millions of years and never once repeated a single one. Every shame you swallowed, every wild hope you were afraid to speak, every time you stood at a window wanting more than this life seemed able to give. She wrote them all on her quiet face in a language no one else can read. Look up through the blinds and you will see your own story glowing back at you, softened, forgiven, held. The moon does not advise or fix. She simply testifies. I saw. I still see. Nothing you are is too dark enough to outrun my light. Sleep now. Your secrets are safer with her than they have ever been with you. Even your shadow is allowed to rest. All day it followed, stretched, shrank, tried to keep pace with your hurry. It mimicked every tense gesture, every defensive posture. Now the lamps are off, and the shadow is unemployed. It spreads across the floorboards like spilled ink finally allowed to be itself, shapeless, weightless, borderless. No one is asking it to prove anything. In the dark it remembers it is only absence of light, not absence of worth. Watch. If you can stay awake long enough, your shadow will curl up at the foot of the bed like a tired dog and sleep more deeply than you do. Tomorrow it will leap up again, eager for its old job. Tonight it dreams of being moonlight. The night has its own heartbeat and you are inside it. Beneath traffic and tinnitus, beneath thought itself, there is a larger rhythm. You can find it if you press your ear to the pillow of the world. A slow, tidal pulse moving through bedrock, through roots, through the marrow of your own bones. It is older than sorrow, steadier than hope. When your small heart falters, this one keeps going. When your small heart races, this one stays calm. Lie down and let the two rhythms find each other. Yours will gradually match the larger one the way a frightened child's breathing matches the breathing of the adult holding her. In that synchrony, you remember you were never a separate drum. You are the echo, learning it belongs to the drum. May tomorrow borrow its courage from tonight's surrender. Surrender is not weakness. It is the quietest form of bravery. Every night you practice it, unclenching the jaw, loosening the story that you must stay vigilant or everything will fall apart. You hand the watch over to something older than worry and, miracle, the world keeps turning. Dawn always finds the pieces exactly where you left them, only softer. Let tomorrow's courage be made of this memory. I let go completely and nothing necessary was lost. I ceased defending myself for 8 hours and I was still here when the light returned. That is the deepest bravery there is, and you rehearse it perfectly every single night. The dark is not empty. It is full of next. Seeds sleep in it. Bears sleep in it. Entire galaxies spin quietly inside it, preparing their next impossible brightness. The dark is not the end of the pause where everything gathers its strength. Your exhaustion, your grief, your half-written poems, they are all seeds tonight. They do not need your forcing. They only need the rich black hush to swell and split and become whatever they were always meant to become. Lie back. You are lying in the womb of next. Whatever you release here will be returned, transformed when the time is ripe. The dark is never empty. It is crowded with tomorrows learning how to be born. Good night, beloved. The vast kindness has the night watch. You may safely become nothing for a while. Nothing bad can reach you here, and everything good is already on its way.